It ain't those parts of the Bible that I can't understand that bother me. It's the parts that I do understand. Hey guys, it's John. Welcome back to the John of New channel. This quote by Mark Twain to me is fantastic because it talks about these ancient texts, the Bible. Now, if you think of it along the lines of the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or the writings of Buddha and all the ancient texts, right? One of the things that's you have to remember is that they're ancient texts, from a different time, from a different perspective, from a different social structure. You know, they are speaking languages and talking things that have no relevance to our physical world today. And in there, interspersed, is mixed great truths for our time today. But it's a matter of looking at what's being said and realizing that some of it is just horrendously judgmental and painful or fearful and those sorts of things are very interesting. Mark Twain says that, it's not the parts of the Bible I can't understand that bother me. No, there's big parts of the Bible that no one in this time period could ever truly understand. There's great parts of the Bible where people go, I just don't get that. This doesn't make sense to me. Because it's a different place, a different world. When I was in Afghanistan on the USO shows, that part of the world is a different social structure than we have here in the United States. To give you an example, every time we would do a base, we would perform on a show, they would come in at the end of the show and they'd give us an appreciation plaque and usually hats or some souvenir of being in their base and thanking us for coming. And it was always the base commander who would come do that. And it was beautiful, a wonderful experience. Well, in Bagram, at the end of the show, the commander didn't show up, but the person who was guiding us around the base came up and handed us the plaque and all this stuff. And then she said to us after the fact, she says, the commander really wanted to be here, but he had a situation he had to deal with. And I was like, really? What happens? Well, she says, we get all of our local physical labor with a contract with one of the local warlords. And one of the warlord's workers was caught shoplifting in the PX on base here. And the commander was over at the warlord's house convincing him not to skin the man alive for stealing from his client. So, we wouldn't have had that experience here, but over there, it was very much a medieval sort of structure, right? It was basically like a feudal system. The lord and his peasants, and then the peasants stole, so the peasant got harshly treated because they were stealing from a friend, right, or a customer, right? So we in the United States could never understand that sort of mentality. We could never understand that sort of way of the world working like that. Now imagine that 2,000 years ago. Now imagine how we couldn't understand, what was happening in Afghanistan today. Imagine how different it was 2,000 years ago. So there's parts of the Bible that make no sense at all because they are from a different time and a different social structure. And it's just so foreign to us and who we are. And then on top of it, it's been translated from the spoken word of probably Aramaic. They don't even know whether it was Aramaic that they spoke. But from the spoken word, it was first translated into Greek, and then, of course, English and all the other languages came from the Greek originally. And so when you look at the outcome, you're looking at a social structure that's completely different. You're looking at a time period that's completely different. You're looking at multiple translations. And so the Bible, in many parts, make absolutely no sense. And I'll give you another, just a simple example. The Bible says that John the Beloved was the only disciple at the foot of the cross with the women. He was there with a bunch of women, right, helping them cope with the situation. And yet the books of Matthew, Mark, and Luke all will give you detailed stories of the Roman soldier, truly this man is the Son of God, and I'll tell you all these things that happened at the crucifixion, but none of them were there according to the Bible. So how would they know? How would they have been able to sit down and write, well, this happened there, this happened there? So we know that the that the Bible itself is flawed, because there's many, many, many flaws in the Bible. And it's a matter of, he says, it's not the parts that don't understand that bothers him. It's the parts he does understand. Now, if you think about that part of this, there are many things in the Bible that are really unloving and uncaring. The whole part of Paul saying that women can't be in the church. Women can't pray in the same room as a man. The whole part of you must become celibate to be of a holy man or a holy person. The whole concept of celibacy comes from the Pharisees' belief, not from Jeshua's belief, right? So it was very much a manipulated. They're all very much manipulated texts from a different time period, from different beliefs, from different structures, and some of the things that are being said in there are pretty horrific. I mean, pretty horrific. There's a part where it says, it's okay to beat your slave so long as he doesn't die, because the slave is property. I mean, does that fit into our time period? No, it doesn't. Does it fit into our social structure? No. There's so many things in there. This army destroyed that army, and God was with this army, and Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt because she looked back. There's so many things in there. God is love. None of those things work if God is love, right? So he gets he says in this quote, the parts he does understand bother him, because the parts he does understand are contradictions to his own personal truth. And this concept that the Bible is infallible has created so many structures. And you'll find very quickly the people who believe that the Bible is infallible will pick and choose to the parts that they think are infallible, and they'll just ignore the other parts, right? And that ignoring of the other parts, it's like, well, then I can't take what you're saying is infallible, because other parts of the same book you ignore because it doesn't match that truth. So what you're saying is what you believe is infallible. And it's not really the way the world works. There are so many different kinds of beliefs in the world, so many different kinds of structures in the world. And the reality is that we all have to come to that space of, is God love or is God not love? And if you believe God is love, then parts of the Bible will absolutely bother you. And the parts that you don't understand might bother you too, because you don't understand it, but somebody else could be interpreting in a way that promotes them or their belief. And so it really comes down to you coming back to your discernment and realizing that all the ancient texts are ancient texts from a time that you don't live in. And it's a matter of put on your love goggles and read those texts and find the parts that are loving. And if it feels right to you, incorporate that into your belief system. If it doesn't feel right to you, don't, because they're all flawed. It's a matter, the truth is within you, not within ancient texts, because every one of those ancient texts has a piece and a part of it, but not all of it. The truth comes to you, and so you have to step into your own truth. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.